All right, good afternoon, good day, everybody out there. Welcome to the SDG Media Zone here in Austin, Texas at South by Southwest. Today we're going to talk about how your founder's story can have a positive impact on the world. I want to thank SAP and the Public Foundation for sponsoring this event. We've got a great slate that we're going to talk about story, a couple amazing entrepreneurs and founders here, and the change that they're doing actively on a daily basis to bring about change in the world. So, a little background on myself. My name is Graft. I'm the founder of Storytelling for Entrepreneurs, and I basically am, what I focus on is in the art and science of storytelling, helping entrepreneurs learn how to create, tell, and share their story to launch and grow their business. So, and getting asked to do this panel, they wanted to talk about folks that were doing amazing things with their companies and their products that are also not only growing as successful businesses, but are having a truly just a positive impact in the world through sustainability initiatives, through the products that they're selling, and having maybe a zero impact on the environment, the ecosystem, just doing great stuff. So there's two people that popped into my mind right away. First is Amy Perez. And the reason Amy Perez came into mind, I film entrepreneurs for a living, and I was filming her at a conference in San Antonio for my best friend Ingrid Vanderbilt's company, Empowering 1 Billion Women by 2020, and Amy was one of the keynotes there. And she got up there and talked about the product that she was making, and at the time I was looking for a new deodorant. I hated deodorant because it's got a bunch of contaminants and aluminum and stuff that's really bad for you. And here comes Amy on stage talking about this coconut oil-based deodorant that you could eat. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about from that perspective? So, Amy, I want you to talk about your company, a little bit of what it is. Primal Pit Paste is the name of her company, what you guys do, and about those products, and which I do use. I use her toothpaste, I use her deodorant, and I use her bug spray. All three of those I can eat. So not only can I wear that stuff, I get to have lunch and dinner, and oh my God, she has this one product that tastes like a margarita and smells like a margarita. So tell us.
That's the coconut lime. It's awesome. So basically, honestly, I'll go ahead and just tell you about the company. It's called P3 Pure, and our flagship product is Primal Pit Paste. It's a natural deodorant that actually works. It's made of organic coconut oil, shea butter, baking soda. We have some formulas that actually have zinc and magnesium. So everything from the earth that's good for you. And we have it in a jar and a stick. We also have, tooth powder, charcoal tooth powder, just everything about our products are non-GMO. We use the best organic ingredients. Definitely sustainable packaging with recyclable plastics, which we are working on, but also glass containers, which is really important to me that we can be able to do that. So we do have bug spray that's amazing, and so we just sell these products online. We are at primalpitpaste.com. We have them in some major retailers like Whole Foods Global. We are in all the Whole Foods stores. We're in 350 Target stores, and mainly online and Amazon, and a lot of different great natural stores like Natural Grocers and a lot of the health food stores around town.
I remember specifically going to Whole Foods and trying, they have these samples, the sample wall, and I'm sitting there opening deodorants and smelling each one. I wanted to eat it, but I felt I get thrown out of the store. Anyways, so the next person I want to talk about is Shawn Nelson. He's the founder of LOVESAC, and I was filming for the Conscious Capitalism Summit. I do that every year here in Austin, Texas, and across the country. And they bring a variety of speakers from around the world that are doing incredible things with their products and their companies. And Shawn, I've seen him speak 3 or 4 times now at the summit, and now I follow him on social media. This guy is all over the place. I love his story. He's got a number of things going on. But what really caught my attention from Shawn's story is that here's this guy, young kid when he started the company, and he started LOVESAC out of a van because he wanted to make a cool beanbag. I mean, that's kind of the genesis. He's going to share his origin story a little bit later on. But now he has totally evolved the company in towards something that has an incredible just design for life ethos that he's developing their products and everything around the company around. And not only does he have these cool, huge, massive things called LOVESACs, they are now transforming the furniture industry in the way that they're approaching how people buy, purchase, and adapt furniture to their life. So, Shawn, tell us a little bit about LOVESAC.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, so LOVESAC is this weird little company that I started one day when I was 18 years old, sitting on my parents' couch watching The Price is Right, bored out of my mind before college began. One summer day, I had this idea, like, how funny would it be to make a beanbag this big, like from me to the TV, like the whole room. And I got off the couch that moment, drove down to Joann's Fabrics, bought some fabric, brought it home, cut it out on the floor, began sewing it up, and took me 3 or 4 weeks to find enough stuff to put in there, and couldn't buy enough beanbag beads, so I ended up chopping up my parents' camping mattresses, like yellow foam in the basement with a bungee cord around it. And it turned out that was awesome, and they were squishy, and people loved it, and we'd take it out to the drive-in movies and drag it around to the beach, whatever. And everywhere I went, everybody wants one. So for 3 or 4 years, this was just a side hustle in college. Fast forward, we got it. As a last-ditch effort before I threw in the towel and went and got a real job when I was graduating college. We took it to a trade show, got discovered, got an order for 12,000 of these little things from a national retailer, not knowing it was like me and a buddy and like a lawnmower, shredding foam kind of thing. And we took the order. We somehow got it done, and at the end of that, realized we had a factory, we had employees, but we had no other customers because I was in there slaving away trying to just get that order out. So we ran on none of the retailers would have us. They said it was a stupid idea. Giant beanbags, too big, too expensive, what have you. So we opened our own store in Salt Lake City, Utah, where this all happened. It turned out people loved it. We were selling at retail at great margins, and $500, $700, $800, $900, $900 beanbags, and it worked. And so we opened stores all over the country. We went through a whole growth phase, and then we went through we went through a complete reorganization. I've been through every up and down an entrepreneur can possibly imagine. And then somewhere along the way, people kept asking about the couch in the corner. And so we decided, the only reason our business was viable is because we could shrink these LOVESACs down. We thought, man, if we could do that with a couch, we'd really have something. It took us the better part of a decade to invent, patent, perfect, and then learn how to transform a company called LOVESAC into like a credible couch company that could cross-sell against Pottery Barn or Crate and Barrel or Restoration Hardware. And that's what we've done. And along the way, we discovered that not only are these really cool modular couches that can ship to you via FedEx. We're the only company on the planet that can do that. Ship you a high-end, gigantic sectional, $10,000 sectional via FedEx. It's really elegant and beautiful, but it can become anything you want. It can grow and adapt and change with your life. Just 2 simple SKUs that we have patented that you can essentially have the rest of your life. And so that is where the design ethos came from, Designed for Life, and we essentially are now selling couches that could be with you the rest of your life. And to us, that's true sustainability, and we're very proud of that.
I'm going to interrupt you right there. We're going to come back to the Design for Life ethos and the mantra that they're pushing forward with their company, because I want to get Amy an opportunity to share your origin story. Now, I'm a big believer in the power of story, so I focus on helping entrepreneurs learn how to craft, tell, and share their story. And there's a couple of really big reasons that I focus on that. Number one, story is one of the most powerful assets you have as a business owner. Storytelling is in our DNA as a species. It's been in existence for every culture known to man, has a history of storytelling that they found evidence of when archaeologists and anthropologists had studied it. Second, storytelling, if I share a fact or piece of information with you, you're going to interact 2 parts of the brain. But if I share a compelling story with you, you're going to interact 6 to 7 parts of the brain. So what happens is you're triggering all these different parts of the brain, these chemicals start getting released, and you have a probability of remembering something 6 times more than if you don't tell a story with it. So if I share a fact or figure with you, if I share it just by itself, versus sharing it with a story, you're going to remember it 6 to 7 times more if I share it with a story. And the other part I want to share that's really, really super important about this, and this is one thing that they do really well, is that when you share a story, there are 3 chemicals that get released specifically. One is cortisol. Cortisol is kind of the attention chemical that keeps us attentive, where we can look out for danger, where we're looking for shelter, opportunity to find food. That's one chemical, and that's how you get someone's attention when you share your story, kind of like Shawn was doing earlier. The second chemical is dopamine. Dopamine is kind of this pleasure type of chemical that makes you feel good, makes you want to learn more, and kind of just get your arms around. And then the real chemical is called the love chemical. And this is the one that Dr. Paul Zak, who's a neuroscientist who studies story and storytelling, he teaches people. It's called oxytocin. And this is the chemical that makes us all social beings. Paul Kirchhoff was talking about this in an earlier panel about why we are the most evolved species on the planet. It's because we have this ability to share stories and we want to be social animals. And when you share a story, you're hitting all three of those chemicals, gets their attention, makes a connection, and really it makes you want to hug. The chemical oxytocin really makes you hug people. So when you feel and you get that close with people, that's the power of story and what it can do. So now, Amy, I want you to tell us a little bit about your origin story and how you came about this. And one of the just most memorable things that I got to do, I went to go tour her place in Austin, Texas. She's got a factory there. And when we got done, I was like eating the product and trying it all out on the way out. And then I made a post about it. And she was raising what I thought was 2 kids. Not only is she raising a startup, she has 4 kids she's raising at the same time. So this is a real entrepreneur right here.
Thank you. Basically my story just started with really not intentionally starting a company. It was really a need. I had done a lot of research on just food. Just started with food and learned a lot about the food system and the chemicals and additives, preservatives, things like that, and really made a conscious effort in my family to change our food. Then I started looking at the things we were putting on our body and kind of putting 2 and 2 together. If they have skin patch technology, our skin is our largest organ. Things are going into our bloodstream that we're putting on, and we should really be putting on our body and care as much about that as what we put in our body. So I started changing all of our products at home, but a lot of them I couldn't afford. I could not afford to shop at Whole Foods. I could not afford to pay, a lot of money for organic products. So I started making them at home. And the one product, though, that I could not find that worked was deodorant. And deodorant, I was a CrossFit instructor, a stay-at-home mom for 20 years, a philosophy major. So it really wasn't an intention to start it. And I kind of gave up on it because nothing worked that was natural. But I sweat for a living teaching CrossFit and stuff like that. So I had the luxury of just kind of taking a shower, washing up. But my daughter came home in 3rd grade and she had like BO. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? She can't come home and take a shower. I don't want her to be embarrassed. So again, I started buying every natural deodorant I could find, and nothing was working. She would still come home after 2 or 3 hours. So I started researching recipes. I came up with a good recipe and made it in my kitchen. I had a lot of leftover pots that then I gave away to a lot of my athletes at CrossFit, and they called me every month. This is amazing. This works so good. It works all day in the hot heat, and we want more. And so I thought, well, I think I might just start selling it. So I just sold off the pots. And then honestly what happened was I had a friend who was a blogger at the time, and she said, I want to do a post for you. I really love your product. And she had kind of a national blog. This is when blogging first started. And she did a blog, and I got all these orders, and I was like, maybe I need to find more of these bloggers. And that's kind of how it started. And I just honestly did not even know I was doing what Lynn speaks of. I really did start with my story about my daughter when I reached out to these bloggers, and the product spoke for itself because it did work and it was amazing, but that was the second focus. And I remember when I grew really fast from my kitchen to my garage within 8 months into a 4,000 square foot facility, we were getting tons of orders. I just kept reaching out to these influencers early on, and I just remember sitting in a conference, like a home soap makers conference, and this woman speaking was like, I was around all my friends, and they were like, you've done such a good job. And she was talking all about selling the story and not your product. And they all looked at me and they're like, that's what you did, Amy. You did that. And so I did, and I didn't even mean to. But so everything you're saying, I totally resonate with, because I think that.
Boy, she just handed me this amazing opportunity to promote something. So I'll do that in a second. But we're here in Austin, Texas at the South by Southwest SDG Media Zone, and we're working with the United Nations Public Foundation and SAP. Sponge, you see all the elements behind us about the 17 developed SDG goals that we're trying to impact for what we're doing as individuals, companies, and products and communities from that perspective. So on that note, I want to show you guys something. This is my self-promo opportunity. This is my book right here, Start With Story, and it's an oversized poster of my book cover. Anyways, the reason I want to focus on that is that really, as an entrepreneur, the power of your story has the ability to do things that very few things in your arsenal as a business owner has. So literally, there are very few things you can control in the environment. You can't control the market. You can't always control your employees. You can't control necessarily your investors or what their customers do, but you always have 100% control of the narrative that you share with people. You get to dictate what you say, how you say it, when you say it, where you say it at all times. So it's imperative that you have a great story. And though the fact that Amy was doing so wasn't necessarily because I'm going to make this amazing, beautiful story and wow everybody. She was just speaking from the heart. You heard about how she wanted something to impact her family. And ultimately, the core of why you tell stories is to reach people on an emotional level. When you see people, I remember specifically the first time that I sat on a LOVESAC was at the Conscious Capitalism Summit, and this 200 of the most successful CEOs in the country are at this beautiful resort, and it's this furry beanbag. He's got 4 or 5 of them, and these CEOs are bouncing around on him like this, and you kind of see him fall into just this happy place. And that's part of what Shawn has created with his brand, with his products, and with his story, is something that makes people feel good, laugh. If you follow their Instagram feed, it's about people sharing photos and stories about their beanbags and now furniture. And same thing with Amy. It's people talking about, like me, how they eat their deodorant. I know that sounds terrible, but really, it's so good. I don't recommend it. It'll probably make you sick, but it does tastes so good, especially the lime. In fact, all my sisters are now using the deodorant thanks to you. And I have 4 sisters, Cindy, Lindy, Minnie, Wendy. So I digress. Let's go back, Shawn. I want you to talk specifically more about the Design for Life ethos and brand that you're bringing out now, because we're here to help entrepreneurs leverage the power of their story to make a positive impact in the world, whatever that may be for you. Hopefully it's in a way that's going to have less impact on our ecosystems, on our environment. It's going to help support not just the shareholders, but all the stakeholders that touch your company is what we're really trying to do as founders to make a positive impact. So Shawn, tell us more about the Design for Life ethos.
Sure. Yeah. I think there's a great story in how that evolved as well for me, and I think it's illustrative of how even if you somehow didn't have a ridiculous founder story, and by the way, the long version of the LOVESAC story is crazy. I mean, it involved foreign countries and foreign languages and all kinds of crazy miracles along the way that I had to leave out because I went very quickly. But what happened is, fast forward a decade into this business, we had invented this really cool couch. We had to pivot, as I mentioned, from being this beanbag company called LOVESAC in the mall. We had like 40 mall stores around the country to being taken seriously against these big retailers. And that's a very long process. And it took a long time to just sort of pivot the brand to achieve that. Along the way, we were selling these couches and people were loving them. In fact, one day, about 4 years ago, I got online to just kind of see what was going on with the competition. I looked at hashtag Pottery Barn, hashtag Restoration Hardware, and I noticed, because we're selling couches against them every day, believe it or not, and people are choosing ours over theirs all the time. And I looked at what I was seeing from customers, not from the companies, right? From the hashtag photos, and they were beautiful, and like rugs and lamps and accessories and throw pillows and all coordinated. And it was like impossible for me to wrap my brain around how sophisticated those businesses were and how far they were ahead of us from a merchandising standpoint. But that same day, I went to hashtag LOVESAC and looked at by the way, we have more action, believe it or not, more likes, shares, comments, interaction with our hashtag and with our social media than even a big company like Williams-Sonoma does. It's strange. It's because of our name. It's because LOVESAC is just a different animal. And I looked at those photos, and instead of being beautiful, perfect little homes with beautifully perfect dressed little kids and beautiful dogs, laid across the foot of their bed, ours were people living and laughing and loving and cuddling and jumping and throwing their children, whatever it may be, right? On the couch, the washable, durable, built to last a lifetime, will evolve with you couch or sack. And they were just characteristically different, even though we sold the same thing essentially, right? And I thought, why is that? And I believe that was the unlock for me to recognize it's because our couch allows you to live your life. It's no big deal. Your kid can run by and knock over your Diet Coke and it spills all over, and it's not really that big a deal. You throw it, you peel off the cover, throw it in the washing machine. In other words, the way that our product facilitates life was different than those other ones, right? And so that got me thinking, You know, life has two aspects. You live however long you live, your longevity, and you live your life with dogs, babies, kids, pets, and a lot of dogs can't be on the couch. But with ours, they can. My point is, that was the unlock of this design ethos that says we will only invent products. We won't do the rugs and lamps and bowls and baskets and decorative accessories. We will only do life-meaningful products that are built to last a lifetime and designed to evolve with your life as your life changes, right? Or can deal with whatever happens in your life, like babies, dogs, spills, pets, whatever, right? What else do you own in your life that's built to last a lifetime and designed to evolve? Think about that. It's a very, very short list. It probably doesn't exist. So what we're doing at LOVESAC has evolved from being just a beanbag company trying to survive. That startup story, just trying to survive, to being now what is the fastest growing furniture retailer in the United States. We're public on NASDAQ as of last year. Crazy, right? This little thing that started in my parents' basement. Thank you. That's really sweet.
Yeah, hey, hello!
And we have this design ethos that's going to change the way people think about everything they buy. Because once you buy a couch that could be with you the rest of your life, all of a sudden you're like, why can't my phone do that? And it pisses you off. Why can't my car do that? And it pisses you off. And all of a sudden you're thinking differently about everything you buy. And that's become our big, hairy, audacious goal, to quote Jim Collins, right, is to change the way people think about everything they buy and to buy less. And this is coming from a company that sells stuff. And we couldn't have started with an ethos that developed when I was just making beanbags trying to survive, or even when I invented the couch, right? We had to evolve into it and live our story. And then, frankly, spin up a new story as the company evolved. And now we have that. And that's kind of what I was trying to share there, the story of what we've evolved into. So you have both your startup story and the stories you can write over the decades as your company evolves. And for me, that was a big light bulb, you know, as we've grown and changed through the years.
Yeah, one of the reasons that I selected both Shawn and Amy is they're very different stages in terms of the evolution of their company. Obviously, Shawn's company just went public on NASDAQ. Amy's in, your fifth year?
Yes,
Sixth year now, and doing exceptionally well, privately owned by you, 100% privately owned.
$100.
Bootstrapped with $100. We need to take lessons from Amy, everybody in this world. Shawn now has shareholders and stakeholders, a lot of them. Like, did you self-fund it or did you raise capital?
No, I was at the time I built that factory I described to do that big order that we got. I was 24 years old, a month out of college, and then $55,000 in credit card debt. You know, buying a tractor and a hay grinder to shred foam because I couldn't afford the $500,000 German shredder.
A hay grinder?
I'm not kidding. Like, tractor stayed outside and ran on diesel fuel, and the hay grinder was inside. I mean, you know, you survive, right? As an entrepreneur, you just survive, and I believe in that. But you know, that's what I'm saying. The LOVESAC story, if we had time for me to unpack it for you, is wild and crazy and like unlikely, but it's all true. And I found when we get the chance to share it, you know, it only helps these customers that choose to spend their now $4,000 on a couch with us to love us that much more, because they're participating in something that's real and not just a corporate, you know, attempt to just make money, a la Milton Friedman, 1970. You know, the purpose of a corporation is to drive shareholder value. Conscious capitalism revolts against that. Right, and that's become part of our story. So, the LOVESAC story, my point is, what started with as a dumb story, we made a big beanbag to survive, has evolved into what I think is a pretty sophisticated business model, and I think ultimately we'll prove it out by being the dominant disruptor in the furniture category. We'll see. You can watch it real time. We're still tiny in the scheme of things.
Tiny on NASDAQ. It's all relative to where we're at. Share, Amy, where you're at and how you've gotten with your story, and now what's changing in terms of where you want to go, the impact you want to have with your culture, with your products, and the evolution of where you're going. I mean, the bug spray is a new product, because who wants to wear DEET on their arms? And you all do if you're spraying that really nasty stuff. You cannot eat DEET. Let me just put that there. You too, Paul, Shell. No, you especially. You cannot eat DEET, but yours. But so tell us where you're going and how that story, but also some of the challenges before you got to where you're at right now.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely had some of the same crazy challenges that have happened, you know, from not knowing about the industry and regulations, and honestly just about the beauty industry in general and kind of natural cosmetics, and just have learned from not only about business and entrepreneurship, but also just about the industry in and of itself, and just the broader natural trajectory of natural products and things like that. CPG company. I mean, I have had to learn so much. It's all these words like are insane. But I mean, basically, we definitely, I think of these things now. Like, what are we going to do to keep going? What do I want and envision this company to stand for? How are we going to be different, you know, in this marketplace? And you know, I think, you know, I had to quickly move my company from Florida to Austin. I started the first year in Florida, and we had some challenges there with just some old school kind of regulations where you got put in some red tape where they wouldn't call you back, and when you're making it yourself and not outsourcing. So that's a different thing. We were making it ourselves. Sometimes when you outsource, you can just sell. You don't have to worry about all of the other things that go along with actually making your product. So we ended up having to move my family and 3 employees. I had to give severance packages to the team in Tampa, set up the factory within a week, and started shipping out product. It was just insane kind of stories. But so basically now we're definitely looking at how we can be one of the, you know, more innovative companies. I can't tell you everything that we're planning, obviously, because there's a lot that I obviously am passionate about, but definitely sustainability. You know, there's obviously a plastic issue. I can say that what I have learned in this industry is the majority of cosmetic companies, they use about 80% water in every product. We are virtually a waterless company, except for a couple products we use some water in the bug spray, but basically our stuff is waterless. So we save a ton of just what they do. And we have steam cleaners too, which helps cut down on the water usage for cleaning the equipment. And so we're definitely focusing on how can we be different as a company. With a lot of other things that I'm working on right now, we're working on a rebrand and refresh. You know, just a lot of things where you hit these places and you're like, okay, I got to keep going. What are we going to do to expand? How are we going to be different? And so that's kind of where we are right now, is just working on something.
Tell me one of the lessons you've learned with your story, from where you started 4 or 5 years ago to the difference now. Because obviously I've heard you tell it, and you're very confident in the impact that you make on an individual's life, as well as someone else. Tell us what you've learned from that perspective that our viewers can watch. That first-time entrepreneur, like, I need to work on my story. What should I do? What should I focus on? What would you recommend to them?
You know, I mean, the 2 things that I just really recommend is just definitely think about, you know, what your purpose is and your passion of, you know, what that story is. I think a lot of people don't really know, and they just are selling the product and focusing on the product. I think another thing is you're going to have, like, I think they call it entrepreneur whiplash, where a lot of people will be telling you a lot of things, but you have to listen to your internal gut of really what you think is going to, what you started, you created it. I'm going to have to tell you a quick funny story. I used to make the pit paste, and I remember waking up in the middle of the night, and I would look at the little jars, and I would be like, are they okay? And I remember the first time
I had to leave
them overnight. Like, first day I moved into my first factory, and I remember feeling sad, like, I have to leave the jars. I can't get up in the middle of the night and make sure that the deodorant's okay. So it's kind of funny. But the bottom line is I created it. I'm passionate about it. I'm connected to that product, and it's my gut that ends up making these decisions. And I can listen to people all day long, and I've had to learn. I've failed at probably many times not listening to that gut. I heard it come up, and I did something different, and I'm like, I knew that was what that feeling was. You've got to start listening to that more. I don't know if that...
No, that's very helpful. One addition I'd make on top of that is, no matter what product or service that you've come up with, it doesn't matter if it's the best thing in the world. There's going to be people who don't like it, who don't care for it, who don't need it. Do not focus on those folks. You want to find, if you're selling water or a drink, find people who are thirsty. Do not try to sell things to the people that don't want it. Because if you're passionate about a product and you're solving a need, in her case, her children didn't want her daughter to have BO at 13 years old. I imagine girls wouldn't want that. Guys don't want that.
Yeah, she was younger. She was like in 3rd grade.
3rd grade. Oh, my God, like those. So if you're solving a good problem and you pour your heart and soul into it, you're going to make a connection, because I guarantee you, if you solve the real problem, there's other people out there that have the same problem. And by communicating on an emotional level, you're going to reach them in a way that no product sales pitch can ever reach. You're like, this is why I'm doing this. I'm trying to solve a problem for my daughter, my friends, my family. And just own that. Own your story. 100%. Because you will find people, if you have a good product, that will buy into it. So
Just real quick, I think the other thing that naturally occurred from that was just reviews. People hearing the story, buying the product, but then the reviews and the feedback was what really kept like everything going. Like, wow, you've got tons of 5-star reviews all over Amazon. You've got thousands of amazing reviews on your website. And so I think that was definitely another part that really helped things continue to go.
Awesome. Shawn, same thing. Tell us about some of the challenges. You can talk about the early challenges, probably more now because since you're more evolved. I think that might be more beneficial to some of our viewers.
Yeah, well, look, I think that and you asked, what would be your advice to entrepreneurs as it comes to storytelling, and I think it's part and parcel to what you're asking me in these challenges. You got to be super transparent. You got to really push yourself to be bold enough to be transparent and to be honest and to be authentic. What you might think is kind of an ugly story or an embarrassing story or an embarrassing kind of way to come up is what will resonate with people because it's real and they can sense that. And because, look, everybody's faking it, man. Everybody's just trying to make it work, scramble along, survive. So let me give you an example. So I won $1 million on national TV, $1 million investment. Richard Branson had a show in 2005, kind of like The Apprentice. It was called The Rebel Billionaire. It was on Fox. It's for entrepreneurs. And me and it was fly around the world, land in Africa, do a challenge. Then we're going to go jump off a cliff together. And then we're going to leave someone behind and move on to the next city. This was real. It was the finalists were myself and Sarah Blakely.
Oh my
right?
God!
First self-made female.
You beat Sarah Blakely?
Correct. Me and Sarah. She won in life. I won the show. Anyway, my point though. Super high, winning $1 million on TV, right? The next year, I was in a Chapter 11 reorg, okay? That's embarrassing and difficult, but my point is it's part of my story. And it's a long story and it's convoluted. All told, you got to be honest with your story, you got to be authentic, and you got to let the chips fall where they may and let the people who love you and tell your story for you because, you can't make it up, just as I can't make that up. And so...
Do you remember it? Recently, something that surprised you that you shared. That you're like, I don't know if I should share that, and you did, and it was a big win.
I think that sharing that, so for a few years after this whole Chapter 11 darkness that LOVESAC fell into because we expanded too quickly and made all the mistakes that every entrepreneur makes, but we survived. I survived. The brand survived. We muddled through it, right? For years, I kind of hid from that because it was embarrassing. And now, you go far enough out and all of a sudden it becomes kind of like a war wound. And by the way, I don't know a lot of people who've actually managed a company through that kind of melee. And it was like my MBA in a box. You know what I mean? Like every contract, you learn more about business through something like that than you ever will through anything else. And so I think that, I've been surprised at how many investors and people have been actually really, frankly, reacted well to learning kind of the reality of what we've been through, what I've been through, and it's given this business resilience and me resilience that I couldn't have learned any other way, right? And so I think you really need to push yourself in storytelling to just put it out there. So my point was, what I learned? People ask me, I was made president of Virgin Worldwide. That's part of that winning that thing. I was made president of Virgin Worldwide for a minute. I went around and I met all of Richard Branson's CEOs of his airlines and trains and everything he was doing, right? And he has 250 companies. It's super cool. And people ask me, oh my gosh, what did you learn from working with Richard Branson? What did you learn from that experience? You know what I learned? Every company is screwed up.
That's awesome.
Every
Feels
company,
good, doesn't it?
They've got this shiny exterior, they're working hard, but inside they've got a million problems. And everybody's just kind of muddling along, making it work. And by the way, you can grow a big, successful company that is working, but still be managing those million problems. And that's my point, is you have to remember that as you go tell your story. And don't be afraid of it. Just put it out there, Nobody wants to follow the band 5 years after they appeared the first time at South by Southwest and they're, this huge mega pop pit. They want to be following the band that I saw them at the bar, right on 6th Street alone, or whatever it may be. That's the band they want to follow. It's the same thing. They want to be connected to you. They want to be connected to a real thing, not just some corporate, whatever that's just there to make money and squeeze, take your money and return to shareholders, right? So That's what I believe. I think that's what I love about this festival, right? It's that ethos. It's like being there first, seeing where things really come from, and being honest with it and transparent about it.
Yesterday, Brene Brown spoke at South by Southwest. I got an opportunity to see her, and I got an opportunity to film her before, and she's in my book, and she is the world's foremost expert on vulnerability. And she studied it for years and years and years. Before even people were talking about it, she was diving into it. And she wrote an amazing book, and she's probably the top 5 most TED-watched video ever. And what I've learned from her from a storytelling standpoint, I was doing it kind of organically and naturally whenever I'm making videos or getting people to share a story like that. And so what I've learned is that vulnerability is a gateway drug to the heart. That is, you expedite the connection process because we're all fighting battles, much to Shawn's point. Really difficult, challenging battles. That could be on a personal level, it could be on a business level. Your partner, I mean, I've had so many bad partner stories in my life. It's just, everybody has those. So if you can find comfort and just be confident in sharing those really challenging, just almost embarrassing things you don't want to share, because everybody in every single audience is going to have an experience that will relate to you 100%. I've filmed about 500 entrepreneurs in the last 15 years, high-profile folks, and another 500 lower-profile folks. And there's a common denominator across the most successful ones. They've all had catastrophic failures because you learn so much more in the depths of despair. You don't forget those lessons, and it just humbles you, and it makes you appreciate the good times that much more. Amy, tell us about some times you've been vulnerable, or you should have been maybe, and let the audience know for the first time. Make some people cry out there.
I mean, definitely, it hasn't been easy for me, for sure. I mean, just having to make those choices, too, as a mom, and quickly, I had 3 months to make a decision whether I was going to move my company from Tampa to Austin, and I did it all and orchestrated it and just made that decision, and that was tough. And then the first 3 or 4 months we got here, it was cash was scary and all of that, and it made me very nervous. Like, did I make the right decision? Oh my gosh, is this going to fall apart? And just along the way too, just having people that maybe I've partnered with or who wanted to come in and partner, and it's just not been the right thing, or there's been miscommunication or kind of understanding, and pivoting through that. And then honestly, just I went through a divorce last year, so I think those types of things just end up happening. So now I'm doing this as a single mom, and just all of these types of things I think definitely are part of my story and will continue to be a part of the journey. And it's not easy, for sure.
It's not easy. And people think there's this magic pill to make your story happen right away. And there's not. It just, a lot of times your founding story, it evolves and it grows, and it kind of develops with the things that happen in your life. I should always recommend work on your story. Just like anything else, you got to practice it, you got to tell it, you'll get better and better, and the story will get better because more things are going to happen. One of the craziest things I ever experienced about startup life is that with every ring of success, you think, oh man, finally I made it, things get easier. It's the exact opposite. As you reach levels of success, it gets harder and harder. The goal's a bit bigger, the challenges are bigger, all those things on that. So we've got about, how many more minutes? About 5 more minutes. Is there anybody have an audience who have a question? We've got one question over here, the man with the heart. Let's go get it. Do we have a mic for this gentleman over there? So we're going to get you a mic. Come back to you in just a second. If there's one thing that you guys could leave, specifically when it comes to confidence or just instilling belief in someone, what would be that thing you'd share with someone, Shawn?
Yeah, I like what you said. Work on your story and perfect it. Look, confidence comes from preparation. And as much as we want to be authentic and you need to push yourself to be transparent, and we appreciate the vulnerability, learning how to speak in sound bites, learning how to share it. Look, if you get in your own way of sharing your story or your brand story or your product story, then no one can help you, right? If it's kludgy and people can't understand what you're trying to... So actually working on your story, as you said, actively preparing, realizing what does resonate with people when I say this or when I share that or what have you in every interaction, whether it be official or sort of just a conversation over lunch, and then honing it and practicing and putting yourself, in opportunities like this to share it. And it's like an actual skill that, I'm constantly working on myself. And it may sound inauthentic to say that, But again, all you're really trying to do is not get in your own way by not being good and not being prepared, right? And so I think that's important for confidence.
Great advice. Amy?
I mean, I think just what I've had to do is just, because I was a philosophy major, I didn't have business background, I felt sometimes I would feel like, oh my gosh, I'm going to walk into this meeting and they're going to see right through me and know that I'm new or I'm new at this. And I would literally walk in and put my game face on, kind of fake it till you make it kind of thing, and just be confident about what I believed in, what I knew was going to happen. If they told me they didn't really think that the jar would work and no one would use that, I just pushed through and, here's 1,000 people that say that they like it.
That's the irony about the conversation about authenticity, is that absolutely being an entrepreneur, there's an element of being able to fake it till you make it. And there's a time to do that, and there's a time to do. When they called me and that first order I got, I was literally shredding a sack so I was out of state. We got nothing from that trade show. I saw the number was out of state. I had just come back from the trade show with empty-handed on, and turned off the shredding machine, brushed the foam out of my hair. I figured it might be something from that show because it's out of state number. I answer it, LOVESAC Corporation. It was the Limited Company out of Columbus, Ohio. They ordered 12,000 little LOVESACs. There was a time to fake it till you make it, and there's a time to just be authentic and real. And I think having a good radar for that is important.
Awesome. So we have the question of, what's your name, sir? Anil, tell us your question.
What gives you the greatest joy, in the work that you do?
For me, I meet 100 tech entrepreneurs that'll tell me like, oh man, it's so, I'd love to just be working in my basement, no employee headaches. If I could make $1 million all alone, I'd do that versus, running some. For me, we get the chance to operate these now, 77 showrooms across the country. We get to employ hundreds of people. I love the people part of it. I love it. I love that we have a big LOVESAC family. It comes with its headaches, but for me, there's nothing more fun than that. And, it's just a unique aspect of our business that I've grown to really love.
Amy?
I mean, for me, I would have to say just the innovation. I definitely feel like I'm more of a creative innovator. And so for me, I love educating people, for sure. Like when I first started, people asked me, well, what is it that your company's really about? And I would say education. They'd be like, not selling? And I'm like, if people don't want to use my deodorant, I tell them to use lemons or alcohol or something else, but don't go back. And I would rather them do that, honestly, than purchase something that is just completely toxic and not good. So for me, education and just really wanting people to get it is probably what gives me joy.
There's one story I want to share with you specifically along those lines, is that Blake Mykoski, he's the founder of Tom's Shoes. When he started his company, he was in the early stages of developing the product and the brand, still kind of naive to all of it. And he was flying through an airport one time, and he noticed a woman that was getting ready to check in at the counter at the airport was wearing a pair of Tom's shoes. T-O-M-S, if you haven't seen it, Tom's Shoes. He makes kind of espadrilles type thing. And when the first time he saw his product in the wild, so to speak. So he goes up to this lady, really nonchalant, and he says, hey, what are those shoes you're wearing? And the woman looks at him and says, oh, they're called Toms. For every pair of shoes that you buy, a person in need in somewhere around the world gets a pair. And he was like, Blake kind of smiled to himself, and he goes, that's cool. And he starts walking away like this. And the lady, she grabs him like this. She goes, no, you don't understand. When you buy a pair of shoes, another person around the world in need who's poor gets a free pair of shoes. And Blake's all, okay. And, for me, as a storyteller, as a person who makes videos for a living, I've made about 800 videos over the years. That capturing that essence of an inspirational story for Blake, he realized at that very moment the power of that one-for-one giving model was exponentially greater than he ever imagined. Because a woman he didn't even recognize was grabbing his arm in an airport, telling him how great this company and product is, and she didn't know who he was. And for me, it is the opportunity to capture that story and to help now as a person who runs storytelling for entrepreneurs, teaching entrepreneurs how to capture it. I guarantee you, I have friends that have bought LOVESAC because I came back for the conference and I told them about this big, fat, furry beanbag thing that's bigger than life. And now my buddy's got his dogs, and he takes pictures of his dogs sitting on it right there. And now I get to tell my family about Primal Pit Paste because it's deodorant you can eat, my goodness sakes, from that thing. So on that note, I think we're about running out of time. We want to thank SAP, Public Foundation. We're here at the SDG Media Zone in Austin, Texas for South by Southwest 2019. We've got Shawn Nelson, the founder of LOVESAC. That's at lovesac.com. You can go there and buy one piece of furniture for the rest of your life and take a lot of pictures of it with all your loved ones. You can go to primalpitpaste.com, still the primary website. Yes. You can buy deodorant and toothpaste and edible bug spray and many other things. I want to thank, I'm Lynn Graft, founder of Storytelling for Entrepreneurs. Really want to appreciate you guys tuning in. And we've got some more panels coming up from the SDG Media Zone in the next couple of minutes. Thanks you guys so much. We appreciate all of you. And tell your story. Yeah.